All right, well, we'll get started with pleasantries. Thanks for joining us for this tech talk on Entuity. Today, so I'm Jordan McPherson. I'm the Director of Product Management at Park Place Technologies. I oversee our Entuity software. And I'm joined today by Matt Miller and Pete Bartz. They're a couple of the smart guys, so you don't have to just hear from a product guy all the time. The topic is kind of a broad one, but maybe we'll put a finer point on it. We hope to dig into kind of Entuity integrations, right? So as tools have proliferated and kind of the world has shifted paradigms a couple of times from one tool to rule them all to everybody's appoint tool, and now with a lot of on-prem and cloud and hybrid and all the rest, our take is no one tool can or should do it all, right? And so really it's a discussion around smart integrations, right? And so we wanted to spend some time today to wrap some definition around some different models of integrations. I'm going to try to share a slide here. Let's see how that goes. So we've got kind of three ways that we think about Entuity integration, right? So there's the kind of early obvious use case, right? Entuity as a source of data, right? And so that's either Entuity pushing data out, right? So this is incident integrations, right? So an Entuity incident maybe really simply, right, sending an email. It's kind of an outbound integration, right? But as we kind of increase, we get into automatic ticket generation, into a ServiceNow or whatever via API, Slack or Teams type integrations, right, where we want to send like a reactive data point to that tool. The other way we see Entuity as a source is like a pool, right? So you've got maybe a data lake or a data aggregation layer that you want to bring in Entuity data for, right? So it can be mixed in with everything else and used for better insights, right? So that's another way. We also see Entuity as the target, right? So it's not the only monitoring tool in the market, right? So there's other solutions out there that are point solutions that are going to offer data that can be used to enrich the Entuity view, right? So that might be incident or event data from another tool used to overlay on the network data. It could be streaming data for additional metrics that can't be gathered, right? We see that with some of the use cases around the user-defined polling, right? So pulling in monitoring data that's maybe generated in another tool or another platform, right? And then the last one's really kind of interesting, and I don't know that we're going to spend a lot of time on this today, but it kind of conceptually, right, is Entuity being configured by or configuring another tool, right? So where we fit in that kind of provisioning or in the dev world, they call it CI/CD, right? Continuous integration, continuous development. With NetOps, we're starting to see that trend come to the network, right? And so, could be change tickets from a ticketing system that then go trigger Entuity to either add monitoring or run configuration management jobs to make that change, right? So a lot of interesting automation kind of plays around there, right? Definitely a use case that that's interesting, right? So I think I've come off the stage. Let me come back on. I think that that's the end of the slideware, at least. So we've got a couple of use cases put together for us today. I think some of you might know Pete or Matt. their role with Entuity is kind of twofold, right? You might know them from pre-sales or whatever else, but you might also know them from some of the implementation work, right? So this is I think we call it premium support or whatever, right? Where they're working on some of these solutions out there. So these are not theoreticals, right? Kind of deals. So I think the plan here is to kind of run through a couple of these use cases and present them. And Pete was going to give us the first one, which is going to be focused on the Teams integration, right? So kind of that. So that would be Entuity as the source into Teams.
Sounds good. All right. Thanks, Jordan. Let me take over from here. Let's talk about Teams, and I'll share my screen out here as well. I'm going to generate an event here while we're waiting. So, talking about Entuity as a source. So, just like integrations that we've got out of the box with other ITSM type of products, ServiceNow, BMC, getting into the Splunk and the Slack type of environments, whether you're looking at things like PagerDuty or OpsGenie, there's a whole bunch of things that you can use Entuity to push data to. What I'm going to show you as an example today is going to be an integration that we're just adding for Teams. So at Park Place, we use Teams internally. So I thought, oh, good opportunity to show something that's new, something that's coming, something that you can leverage as well, but talk a little bit about how that is actually set up. So let's look at that, and let's start with just, what does it look like? Now, I'll talk about how it's built in a bit, but let's look at the source, and then let's look at what you get at the end of it once you actually get the integration working. So I've got a device in my environment that's actually looking at, you'll probably recognize this device. Actually, it's been used for other tech talks when we talk about API polling, but I'm actually generating an event and an alert based on a thunderstorm warning over in Ohio. So it's winter, probably don't get many thunderstorms, but this is an event that's coming into the system. And from a Teams perspective, which might be a little bit different than like a ServiceNow environment, a Teams perspective, you would normally want to push something that's new into that channel as a notify to say, I've got something going on that I need to pay attention to. So the integration that we're going to look at is incident push to Teams. So here's the incident that we've got as an example. You'll see that in the UI. And if I look at that from a Teams perspective, I've now got an integration where I've built a channel. Let's get to narrow this down so I can see the right stuff. But I've built a channel, and I've actually added in a managed channel here that I can leverage. I just called it Demo 20 incidents. But I'm actually seeing that specific incident in here. I'll talk about a little bit how this is formatted, because this is a little bit different. Teams is a little bit different than other products, where you've actually got the ability to do some formatting of the data that's coming into the environment. And that's actually done as part of the action. But it's a really straightforward thing. I see an incident that's critical that I want to pay attention to. I take an action and push it over into a defined Teams channel. Now let's look a little bit on how that's set up. So how would you actually do that? And this is fairly generic in terms of even other products, right? Whatever product that you want to be able to integrate with, Teams being one example. The first step is, what does Teams require for an API connection? And how do I actually set up that endpoint within Teams? So if it's Slack, how do I set up the Slack channel? Every product's going to be a little bit different, but I'll walk you through what I did in terms of Teams right here. So initially, I went into my channel and created a brand new managed channel here. So I actually went through and created a channel, and I came up with a name. I managed this one. I just called it Demo 20, Entuity Incidents. From a Teams perspective, that's basically all that all that you have to do there. But the important part is really that next step. So I'm going to go through, I'm going to manage this, or I'm going to manage the connectors. So how do I connect into this channel? Teams uses an API key. So similar to Slack, similar to other products, you're going to have to build an API key that Entuity can actually send to. That would actually send to this demo 20 Entuity incidents channel. Now you can have multiple channels. You can actually have the same channel that's receiving incidents from multiple Entuity servers. So if you're handling a multi-server construction and that type of an environment, once you set up this connector, you can use this connector and put it on all the polling servers and send everything into one channel. Let's take a look at this and let's manage the existing configured webhook that I've got in the system. So I've got one webhook configured. You would normally hit the configure button if you're going to create a new one, type in the name that you want, and then you can upload an image. I've done that. It actually hasn't been absorbed into the system yet. Teams takes a little bit once you set this up to actually know that it's there and can actually receive information from Entuity. So if you don't see events right away or incidents right away, don't worry, just give it a little bit of time to get baked into the team system. But once I've got an image, I can pick that. This is the one that would end up showing up on in my team's environment. The API key is right here. So this is actually going to build an API key. It's really simple. All I do is copy this to the clipboard. And this is actually the API key and the path to this channel that I'm going to use in the action. So compared to other products, Teams is actually really straightforward to be able to set up. Let's flip this around and take a look at the Entuity side. So the first step is to build an action. And again, the action definition is something that we'll make available. I think Jordan pushed people to the support, open up a support ticket and just query on the Teams integration for right now. Eventually, this will be added into the standard product. But for the time being, getting access through support is probably your best route. But I've added a new action. Let's take a look at this. And again, this is really straightforward. The details behind this is going to be in the actual Groovy definition right here. So this action, and I'll show you this in a little larger type in a minute, but effectively taking the Groovy script that defines the action and also leverages a path. So the path here is the parameter that you would use to plug in the API key. Now in my action definition, I've kept the path to be blank. The reason for that is when I create a Entuity trigger, so I'm going to create an incident trigger, I can actually have different triggers going to different channels. So I can build as many channels as I want in Teams for different purposes. I can take each one of those API keys and those path definitions and use them in an individual trigger. So I've built the action, I've put it in place, I'm going to leverage that action and build a trigger. Now in my case, I set this up to just send a notification to Teams when an incident initially opened. Again, just like any other trigger, you can change this to forward every change or just open and close or open and expired, whatever the state is that you'd like. But you can also put conditions against this. So if it's a firewall problem, put it in the firewall channel. If it's a problem with a specific site or some specific condition that you want to pay attention to and treat separately, leverage the condition capabilities in a trigger to do that. The action, again, this is my defined action that I've added. And in here, I'm going to actually leverage the API key that I've got. I'll make this just a bit bigger. The key in this purpose, for this purpose, is really not relevant. You're going to have your own key, but just enclose your path and that API key that you get out of Teams, put it in quotes. That's really it. So I've created this, I've defined it, I've got it enabled, I've got it set up in my system and deployed as far as my project. So I'll go back to what we started with and let's generate another event. generate a weather event. And based on this, because I'm opening up an event, I'm going to actually see this, and I would actually see this in my Teams channel right here. So pretty straightforward to put together. Again, the details behind this as far as the action definition is something that you can get access to from our support group. But actually enabling this and setting it up is actually pretty pretty straightforward to do. Now let's look at one other thing, because the formatting of this can be really nice, and being able to control the formatting, again, makes this much easier to actually read or actually focus on what's really going on, including this view incident button down here. Let's look at the actual action definition. And this is the same one that I showed you in the UI. And for the most part, pretty much this is boilerplate information, but let's get down to the actual body definition right here. So this is the JSON body that I'm actually assembling. And what you'll see in here is the ability to set my type, set my fonts, set the size, do some formatting all the way down for each one of these blocks that are in the message. And again, different products are going to be different. Splunk is different than Teams. Certainly ServiceNow is going to be different because you're just sending the data to ServiceNow, and ServiceNow is going to do the processing. But this is really interesting because not only do you just forward the incident over, but you can do some formatting against it. And you can actually pull in an interactive URL. So this is the URL for that incident and the component that it's associated to. And from here, I can actually just select view incident and log back into the system and actually go directly to Mayfield Heights to see what's going on. So a quick way to go directly to Entuity right from Teams. I think that's about it. Jordan, any questions that you can think of? Otherwise, I'll turn it back to you.
No, I think based on kind of the calm in the chat, I think you took us through it pretty well, right? And I know that the first time I saw it, the Teams integration was really kind of interesting because it was, I'd say, surprising how easy from a team standpoint, right? Normally, we think about Microsoft and permissions and licenses and kind of a real pain, but it was refreshing to see how easy that was from a team side, right? So pretty good stuff there.
Yeah, I mean, I spent probably less than 30 minutes setting this up in our demo environment this morning, just to do another iteration of actually the setup. Setup is really straightforward.
Yep. Okay, and if there's any other questions, feel free to put them in the chat. We can come back or we'll answer them offline afterwards. But I think with that, Pete, thanks a lot. And then I'm gonna bring Matt up here and so Matt, tell us a little bit about high level the CMDB integration with ServiceNow. I know that's a pretty common ITSM and kind of use case, right? We hear that a lot. Just talk quickly kind of what we get out of this.
Sure. So I'm just going to share my screen. So with ServiceNow CMDB integration, or probably most other CMDBs, you can pull pretty much any data out of Entuity using Entuity's First API. So we have like a data access template. So that's what you can see on my screen here. It's a bit of XML that you provide a name to it. You say what type of object you want to export data on, and you can define the attributes that you want to export. So in this case, we're getting things like MAC address, manufacturer, model. And what will happen is you send a HTTP post request with this XML as the payload to your Entuity server. And then you can now call that template So we can see here we've got our API/data access, then the template name, and we've got we're providing a parameter with the view. So in this case we're saying all objects. So as you can see, we've got all our devices on this server. This is an output we can get, and in this case it's XML. We can also get it in JSON format. And obviously, if maybe you've got multiple customers on your server, you might have one customer that wants to export to their CMDB. You could put all their devices in a particular view and change the URL here to be their view, and then they can use that URL. So with this information, we can use ServiceNow to pull that data out. So I won't go through all the details of how it could be set up in ServiceNow, as there's a fair bit to it. But if I just go to scheduled jobs. So what I have done is we have a scheduled job basically in ServiceNow set up to run a script that ServiceNow uses, and basically ServiceNow is going to call that URL with some extra parameters so it can do pagination, so we can get as much of the information that we need as possible. It's going to put all that data into a staging table within ServiceNow, and then ServiceNow has things like transform maps, which transforms the data in that staging table and places it into the CMDB, the actual table where it's going to be stored. Now, obviously, ServiceNow is based in the cloud, and it needs to speak to your Entuity server. So with ServiceNow, they have a thing called a mid server. So it's a bit of software that can run within your network, and it has the ability to talk to your Entuity server, and then it can also talk out to ServiceNow. So when you set this up, if you're using ServiceNow, that is obviously, you would need to configure it so it uses that mid server, and then it can talk to your Entuity server. But once you have this set up, you can obviously schedule it to run daily, weekly, or execute now if you wanted to. And that should, if we just go and have a look in here, pull in all the data that we set out in that data export template, data access template, sorry. And you can see here we've got some devices from that server. So if we just take a look at one of these, there's not a huge amount of data that we're pulling out, but you can see we've got the manufacturer model, we've got IP address, serial number. And as I mentioned at the beginning, you can pull out pretty much any information that Entuity has on a particular object or type of object. So it doesn't just have to be sort of static attributes like serial number or model. It could also be time series data, and we could get the most recent sample from a particular stream like CPU, or we could get a range of samples as well, if that's something that was needed. So that's sort of a very sort of simple example of how to integrate with a CMDB. We've done it with other customers, and it's been a bit more complicated. And obviously,
yeah, this seems like something that would be as complicated as your environment, right?
Yeah.
The question
exactly.
I have is, we're showing kind of the creation step, and I'm assuming that just as easily this could be adding into an existing asset or whatever, right? So it's an enrich as opposed to a create.
Yeah, so that's something we've done before. So what you'll see is that obviously there's normally like a correlation ID or something along that line that you can use to uniquely identify a particular object. So we've done it before with a serial number, where we were pulling data in from Entuity for devices, looking at their serial numbers and matching them up to devices they already had in CMDB via their serial numbers. And obviously there was some rules put in place for when maybe the serial number didn't exist, or there was duplicate serial numbers, things like that. But yeah, it can be done to enrich something already there.
And then we've got a guide published on the support site for this that kind of captures your notes. So if anybody wants to do the slow version, right? I know demos can be a little bit whirlwind, right? But that's there on the support website.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so there's some steps in there that you can set up ServiceNow to do sort of a simple integration, and then obviously you could extend it from there if you wanted to.
Great. Any well, yeah, any questions on for Matt here? We got one more use case that is a little less generic, but it really wanted to present it as kind of a art of the possible. I just put the link for the support article, kind of summarizing this integration steps, right? So kind of examples. So with that, let me try to make this work. They give me too many buttons and I want to use them all. So we should see a Central Park dashboard being shared now. Is that just gonna pause there for a second. So this is a QA instance of our customer portal, right? That we deliver our services on. And so we've worked pretty hard to integrate Entuity kind of front and back here, right? So I would say we've got some, real basic integrations like a cross launch function that really just, brings you into, Entuity, right? We've also got ticketing integration from Entuity into our support platforms. And so how that ends up looking is, we have a ticket that gets opened with the data, but then also has, callback, right? So we can go from support portal directly, in context to the affected device, right? So that can be really helpful, right? As we're trying to, integrate some of the Entuity into our standard service delivery. The other piece that we do is using data access templates, right? So we have Entuity assets that get pulled into our to a customer's asset view, right? So in this case, we see the asset sources Entuity here, and then when I kind of click in, then I get my Entuity data that we've pulled in. We also, if there's other services associated with this device, we would add those, right? And then again, we've got kind of that cross launch function back into the context in Entuity for that device, right? So this is a lot of the principles of what we're looking at today, whether it be push pull or polling type data, integrating that for kind of a business use case, right? So the other piece I'll just add is it just popped into my head, right? Obviously it's our portal, our software, and so you would think like, oh, they should have pretty good integrations. They can cheat. All of this integration is based off the public APIs and what's in the product today. So we're not doing anything tricky or cute or taking advantage of the fact that it's our software, right? So this is all based off of just the available APIs, right? And the what we've talked about today. So and obviously there'll be more integrations as we go, right? But these are kind of our early use cases, if you will. I'll bring everybody back up here as we kind of close towards the end of the demo here, right? And I want to, just bring up that the scripts will be available through support, right? Along with some documentation around putting them in and bringing them together. I think the big thing for me kind of greedily is, understanding what tools you guys are using, what integration use cases make sense, right? I mean, some of this is, really limited by what's the business case, right? What are the tools that are out there? But we're definitely looking to incorporate more of these things into the product natively and kind of build out this functionality, because we understand that this is an ecosystem, right? We want to be a good citizen, if you will. So if anybody has any integration use cases or questions, or how would we, go ahead and send them straight in. Love to hear them. I'm a big fan of good idea fairies, right? So love to hear it. Love to talk about it. So yeah, please let us know. And if we need to dig in on a tech talk on another one down the road, we certainly can. I have my one marketing mandated ask, which is I think Larry earlier shared a link for G2. So that's the analyst pages, and it would be really helpful, if you guys can head over and fill those out. I'm told there's Amazon gift cards available for these things, and if that would violate any corporate gift giving rules, right? You can also choose to donate them. Larry, if you could put that link in again, I think it might have come a little too soon for the meeting, maybe. And then Nick Van Allen asked, do you have integration with open telemetry collectors or anything for Prometheus Telegraph? So I don't think we have anything that I can quickly alt tab over and show. I think the interesting question would be there is, thinking back to the models, right? What do we want to do, right? Are we looking to shift data into Prometheus from a like EMS standpoint, or is it more of we want to pull data, we want to bring in data from OpenTelemetry into Entuity? So I think that would be probably the first place to start, is just kind of, what's the story we want to tell with the data, and the business problem we're trying to solve. And then from there, I think it would kind of lead down the solutioning path of how that would integrate. We have done some integrations with other tools where we're either, accepting webhooks on like incident data, or, using defined polling to pull in stream data and enrich that on Entuity devices, right? So it's, there's some, even I would say low code solutions there, depending on the other tools, right? The user defined pollers, pretty approachable from usually with integrations, the answer is always, we've got an API, and I always hear, do you have developers, right? Yeah, you can do whatever you want if you have developers. So we try to make this stuff as approachable as possible. Is it possible to get the ticket number from ServiceNow into Entuity? So thinking, so push a ticket to ServiceNow, or push an incident to ServiceNow, open a ticket, and then we want to pull that back and add it as an annotation to an Entuity ticket or Entuity incident, or maybe a custom field. Peter, Matt, do either of you want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, actually using the existing APIs, you can post back to an incident. So in a case where you would get, you would use the action to be able to send to ServiceNow, you'd include the incident ID. Based on that incident ID, you could actually build a workflow in ServiceNow to push a annotation update or an extra field that would include the snow ticket back into Entuity. You'd build
Matt, is that just me? I think
No, I can't hear.
Okay, nope, it was okay. Pete, I think we lost your mic. I've been having some PC problems, so I assumed it was me, but I think where he was going was there's workflows in ServiceNow that you can use the incident ID from Entuity to then correlate back that ticket number and write it back, right? So it's a little bit of work, you know, from the Entuity side. We've got the ServiceNow integration today, and then there's probably some additional effort in ServiceNow to get the write back to work. Is that a fair summation from 40,000 feet, Pete? Yeah. Oh no, I missed it. Okay. So yeah, maybe we'll have to schedule a bigger talk on two-way ticket integration with ServiceNow. That yeah, cool. No, that's an interesting one, and really the where we're at. Same integration with Cisco Teams. I'm not familiar with Cisco Teams. Is that part of the Jabber suite, or is that something different? That's like Google furiously. Cisco WebEx Teams. How about that? So it's a similar product. It's like Slack, it's like Teams, but it's the Cisco version. Okay. You know, I think what we'd have to do is look at the, you know, what APIs are available there for messaging and all that, right? But that shouldn't be too much different than what we're talking about for Microsoft Teams. What we're seeing right now is, you know, a lot of orgs and have been moving to Teams, you know, if they're Office 365, just because it's kind of included, right? But this is a good call out to go read about. So yeah, so just the final plug for G2, and then a confirmation that, you know, if you guys have any other integrations, I'm going to certainly go look at the Cisco Teams API documentation for integrations. But you know, we've got some use cases where we've done work with, you know, Ops Genie, where we've done, you know, I think I heard something about a Twilio integration that's maybe out there in the wild somewhere, right? So there's a lot of different use cases that are out there, but if you have more, right? I mean, that's the no two orgs are the same or same business cases requirements. So you know, just asking for that feedback so that we can incorporate. So thanks a lot, and with that, I'll stop rambling to fill time and give you the rest of your day back. And thanks so much for coming. And thanks, Pete and Matt, for being up here with me.
Thanks, everyone.
Take care.